Right everyone, WeaponCollector here. Right, I thought I'd do another video, probably one of my last videos on the new UK Offensive Weapons Act that came in. There's been an update yesterday, strangely. Although this law has been passed for 2 years, I think, there's still updates on it, and I think there's still sort of stuff going on. As of yesterday, now I'll show you what I'm reading so you can see this. When I start reading bits out of it, I'll show you what I'm reading. It says changes to the legislation brought about by the Offensive Weapons Act 2019 means that from today, July the 14th, it is now an offence to possess certain items such as knuckle dusters, throwing stars, zombie knives, even in private. Now that's the thing that a lot of people don't know. That's why I'm going to do this video, because there may still be people who don't know that those things are illegal. There's 19 items on the offensive weapons list that were banned to own in your home. Now there's loads of stuff in the UK that is still legal, and I'll show you some of those items during this video. It's only 9, well actually it's 21 items, because they added 2 items onto it that are banned. And what made me decide to do this video today, because that article that was added on July the 14th, literally yesterday, has the first ever official video I've ever seen about the laws being changed. This is more of a discussion video than anything. So, the 19 items that were banned, if you don't know, were butterfly knives, disguise knives, flick knives, gravity knives, stealth knives, zombie knives, certain swords, which is a curved sword over 50 centimetres that isn't handmade, basically. There's more to it than that. But if you have a handmade sword, it's still legal, basically, if it's curved. There's a little bit more to it than that, though. Sword sticks, push daggers, blowpipes, telescopic truncheons, batons, hollow coubatons, throwing stars, about 3 or 4 weird ninja weapons that, you know, unless you're an enthusiast in that, you probably won't know what they are. Knuckle dusters, zombie knives, actually I've mentioned zombie knives, and cyclone knives. So those are banned to own in your home now, and I think probably up until recently, very recently, they were still doing the like a hand-in thing. You know, you could hand those weapons in, which again is something I'll talk about in a minute. But what I wanted to do was read out some of the stuff that the article mentioned and some of the things it recommends you search for, because I'll be honest with you, some of the stuff I read is laughable. And it's a bit like the offensive weapons list in itself anyway, is laughable. It's very... The problem is, most of the items on that offensive weapons list have been illegal to import into this country for a long time, or they're weapons that never get used by anyone in any crimes, or they're pretty much non-lethal. It'd be pretty hard to kill someone with an extendable baton. You can do it, but you're not just going to hit them once and they've done the classic thing of banning loads of things that aren't actually used in crimes. But I'd like to show you quickly, because there'll be people saying, oh, you know, I feel sorry for you not having all that stuff banned. There's loads and loads and loads of stuff that you can still collect. And by the way, if you are watching this and you want to write things like, oh, I'm so glad I live in America because of blah blah blah, please don't write it, because the problem is it makes you come across as a bit of an arsehole, really. You know, give us a bit of support, not a, you know, oh, I'm so lucky I've got everything better than you. Yeah, you don't come across as a, you know, a very decent person when you do it. Plenty of things you can still have. There's loads of great big knives you can still own, and in the right circumstances, carry. None of the stuff on the offensive weapons list you can carry anyway. You couldn't carry anyway. You know, you can't own it now. But yeah, loads and loads and loads. There's only 19 little items that have been put on to the list, and every single thing you see in my videos is a legal thing you can own in your home. Make them if you want. Yeah, things like this you could legally carry that. Those are non-locking knives under 3-inch blades. But as you can see, there's plenty of stuff that you can still collect and own in your home. Just as a little disclaimer for myself, I own nothing on the offensive weapons list, and I haven't since at least 2019. So there's an example of some of the stuff you can have, and then I wanted to talk about some of the stuff it mentions on this these articles. So I'll go on to the first one. So it says on there, other sections of the Act will commence today include the updated definition of a flick knife, which, if you didn't know, turns a spring-assisted knife into a flick knife now, so those can't be owned. As far as I'm aware, a knife with a flipper, as long as it doesn't have a spring, is still legal. And banning the private possession of flick knives and gravity knives. Again, as I mentioned, all the things on that list are now legal to own. The rest of the Act will commence later in the year and will bring in new provisions for the control of goods sold online. That's where you have to have someone sign something when you sell a knife now. Which, yeah, that makes sense really. It's a bit of a pain in the arse, but I suppose it does make sense. And luckily I have noticed places like Royal Mail now, if you didn't know this, if you don't want to sell knives, Royal Mail now have an option where you can actually have a age verification done now. So you can still follow the law perfectly well, selling knives to people in the UK, from the UK, in the UK. Yeah. So if you're worried about that, I think that is a good option. Royal Mail actually have their own thing now, where they will get age verification for you, and then you're following the laws then. Says about there's a growing issue of online sale of knives, which again, total bollocks. Most knife crime in the UK, as far as I'm aware, is kitchen knives, or very cheap knives anyway. Because this is the other thing. They go on about knuckle dusters. Yeah, I've never heard of anyone being killed with a knuckle duster. Yes, you could, but it's not going to be easy to do. Throwing stars, never. I bet no one's ever been killed with a fucking throwing star in the UK. Zombie knives, yeah, I think that was an issue, but it's not the zombie knife itself. It's just these people liked to carry big, threatening-looking knives, and that was what it was. So the UK renamed them zombie knives and just started banning anything they could under the guise of a zombie knife. It was, again, pathetic. Yeah, and that's the downside with this law. It's punishing a lot of perfectly innocent collectors who have no intention of ever supplying these things to criminals, using them in a criminal way. And also, these items aren't even bought for that purpose. That's the laughable thing for me. You cannot buy flick knives in this country anyway. It was illegal to import them into the UK anyway. Same with knuckle dusters. And they weren't being used in these crimes in the first place anyway. So, yeah. So I'm just going to scroll through. You can read through the rest of the thing. I'm just going to have a quick look, see what there is worth. So the police and partners will be working to educate the public and business community regarding these changes in legislation. Introductions of the measures will provide us with further means to help deter young people from becoming involved in knife possession and knife crime. Now, I could tell you some stories about that I've seen on the TV and the radio, because the problem with knife crime, I may be wrong, I'm not an expert on these things, but a lot of knife crime nowadays comes from, well, I think there needs to be a lot more education with the parents. The problem is, there's a generation of kids now who were brought up by a generation of adults who themselves have no respect for the police or any kind of authority, and they've taught that to their kids. And also, a lot of it, I think there's just a lot of parents who can't be bothered. You know, teenagers need to be taught, you know, basically what's right and wrong, and to respect adults. I was listening to the radio once. I was listening to the Radio 4, this programme, and they was talking to teenagers from a London school, and they was asking them about, whatever. And these teenagers pretty much said, I don't listen to anything a teacher tells me. I don't have no respect for them. I learn what I want to learn. I don't take no notes of them. And I thought, my first thought was, well, you're going to be thick as shit for the rest of your life then, aren't you? Because a teacher's role is to teach you. If you're not going to listen to anything a teacher tells you, you're literally going to be thick as shit for the rest of your life. You know, there needs to be a lot of education, and I don't think it's just children at all. It's not the children who need it; it's the adults. Because the other thing I've watched is it was another radio show actually, and it was talking to. It was about knife crime basically, but they were talking to this bloke who was a sort of liaison between teenagers and the police. And he was there, and he would talk to the police and the teenagers and get them to try and get together and sort some stuff out. This bloke said he found out one of the people had a knife, and they'd got into some weird fight in a like a KFC type restaurant place, you know. And the boy had managed to defend himself with the knife, basically. But the thing that I found sick was, instead of the bloke sort of condemning it, he was saying how it was a good thing the kid had a knife. Why not encourage them to avoid certain situations? You know, there's loads and loads and loads of things you can do other than carrying a knife. You know, and it's a difficult thing to talk about, because we can legally carry knives in this country if they're a certain type of knife, but I think there are certain circumstances where you shouldn't. There's also certain circumstances where it would be actually better to avoid situations in the first place. That's what I'm trying to get at here. This man was pretty much saying, this is the bloke who's trying to educate them in their life, and he's basically encouraging them to carry knives, because he thinks, he's so stupid that he thinks that's the only recourse in life, rather than avoid the situations in the first place. Now, I know it's not as easy as that, but surely you would try and encourage that first. If people are getting, you know, if you live in an area where you're getting stabbed a lot or whatever, people are being murdered, I think the best recourse would be to try and get out of there. And as I say, I know that's not as easy as that, but I don't think the best recourse in life is to carry a knife with the intention to stab someone with it. It just seems a bit backwards for me. But what I'm trying to get at there is, that's where you need the education. Parents need to be educated, and the kids need to be educated that there are other ways in life to go about things. You do not need older people who think it's the right thing to carry a knife, who are supposed to be figures of authority, telling teenagers that it's alright. I think that's dumb as fuck, in all honesty. So let's have another look at some of the stuff that's on here, because there was a couple more pretty funny things I thought anyway. But yeah, it says there at the bottom, crime is not something that can be solved by policing alone. We are working with businesses, schools, charities, community schemes to educate people and explain why carrying a knife is never the right choice. This early intervention plays a vitally important role in stopping young people from turning to a life of crime. Again though, it's not a life of crime. You know, a lot of teenagers don't carry a knife because they want to live a life of crime. But they do need to be educated that there are other ways to do things. But definitely helps if these teenagers are educated properly, or youngsters, and learn to have some respect for the people trying to teach them. I find that really, really fucking stupid. A 14-year-old, you know, thinking they're smarter than a teacher. You know, a kid who's probably never ever even read a fucking book. You know, and they say, I'm not going to listen to anything a teacher says. You're literally fucking doomed if that's what you're fucking doing. Right, let's go on to a different one. So this is the NPCC, the National Police Chiefs Council. This is the one that actually has the proper video on, which I was quite surprised by. I don't think there's much on this that I haven't already mentioned. Let's go to the second one of that. We welcome the changes to legislation being introduced by the Offensive Weapon Act. These measures will help officers seize more dangerous weapons, deal with those intent on using them to cause harm and suffering, and crucially make it more difficult for young people to get hold of knives and other dangerous items. It won't stop people getting hold of knives in the slightest. All these bans they do never affect anything, because most of the weapons that are used for murders are not the kind of things they banned. Flick knives are very difficult to get in this country. I bet if you looked through the list of murders with knives last 20 years, I bet there'd be hardly any flick knives in there, because of how difficult they are to get in this country anyway. It's just a backwards thing. Ban flick knives because of how quick they are to open. That's a lock knife. Literally makes no difference if it's a push button. I can open that just as quick as any flick knife. Again, standard lock knife. The fact that it's got a button on it would make no difference at all. So banning that for that reason. But then us collectors know all these things, don't we? Which is the sad part of it. We know none of this is going to change anything, and it's just punishing people like us. People haven't. I'm going to get up to the compensation thing eventually, because there's a couple of things with that. Because there was a thing where we could, there was a compensation scheme where we could hand some stuff in for money, but the prices were laughable. But I will get to that. So let's go on to the Yougov one. Ban on knives, firearms and offensive weapons comes into force. A tough ban on a wide range of knives, weapons, firearms comes into force today as part of the government action to tackle violent crimes, serious violence. And then it mentions some of the knives. It says new legal definition of flick knives banned since 1959 also takes effect. But yeah, then you got the zombie, you know, all of the things on the list. Oh, it says anyone unlawfully possessing a firearm covered by the ban can face up to 10 years in prison, and those possessing one of the other weapons can be sentenced up to 6 months imprisonment and a fine or both. So then you've got a politician saying a bit of crap about stuff. But yeah, lower down, I think it's on the third one, Yougov, it says about from December 2020 to March 2021, the government ran a scheme allowing members of the public to surrender to the police any items that fell within the new ban and claim compensation with the Home Office. Right? There was a list of how much some of these items cost, you know, what you'd get the compensation on, and I think knuckle dusters was like 10 quid or something like that. Yeah, nearly all the weapons on the list they'd give you something like 5 or 10 quid. Apart from a couple of really, really random items that they'd give you, I can't remember how much, but it was a lot for what it was. And one of them was sling swivels, 40 quid, or something stupid like that. Honestly, I found that hilarious. And it made me wonder, was that some kind of government scam? Where one of them, you never trust what the government say anyway. That some fucker probably had like fucking millions and millions of fucking sling swivels. Because you can buy sling swivels, you can buy antique sling swivels, or, you know, proper firearms sling swivels for like 2 or 3 quid. Hand them into the government for fucking 40 quid. Absolutely laughable. So it tells you how many things got handed in. So they reckon nearly 15,000 knives and offensive weapons were handed in, 1,133 rapid fire firearms, and more than 32,000 items of ancillary equipment, which is probably all the fucking sling swivels. And out of all of that, 829 claims for compensation. Yeah. So what's that? Fucking 50,000 items supposedly handed in, and less than 1,000 compensation claims. And I bet the majority of those compensation claims won't be paid out either. It was laughable, that list. I wish I kept it. But yeah, it was things like zombie knives, £5, flick knives, £10, throwing stars, £5, knuckle dusters, £5, something like that. But it was massively underpriced for what these things would be. Considering if you was handing a knuckle duster in that was legally bought in this country, so it'd be previous to whenever, 40 years ago, that'd probably be a reasonably expensive item. There's also a little bit of change to the antiques firearms regulations. I don't know too much about this, but it says introduced this year, provides for the first time a legal definition of antique firearm. And I think it was just they made like a specific date for some of these things and they took some of the guns off the list. But if you have got one of those and you're not sure about it, you may need to look up about it. And I think you've got, it says there, till 22nd of September to, I suppose, either hand it in or get a firearm certificate for it. Yeah. So that's it really. That was all. I really just wanted a bit of a sort of discussion about it. But yeah, it's just a shame that a load of items that are completely pointless get banned. As I've shown you, there's loads and loads and loads of items that are still perfectly legal to own, buy, keep in your house. It's 19 items that most of them have been banned for sale in this country for years and years and years and years anyway. Very bizarre. Doesn't stop any knife crime, doesn't stop any violent crime. You can ban everything you want and someone will just use something else. Well, the biggest joke of all is criminals don't care about the laws anyway. So banning knuckle dusters isn't going to stop a criminal attacking someone with a knuckle duster. Banning zombie knives is not going to stop a teenager getting hold of a zombie knife or whatever, is it? Bit like with the guns. There's a lot of guns that are banned in the UK. It doesn't stop criminals getting them. Yeah, I don't know. But I just thought I'd start a bit of a debate and a bit of information in case you lot don't know these things are going on. You may agree with me, you may disagree. But yeah, the information's out there and that's all that I really wanted. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it helpful. Don't forget to share it with some people. That always helps me because I really don't get my videos sent out to many people nowadays. Alright, so there you go. If you need any advice, I'll put the links to all of this stuff in the description or just leave me a comment and I'll try and get back to you. Alright? I'm going to do a series of videos soon where it'll basically be knuckle dusters banned and then I'll give you the answer to that. There'll be short little videos so people get the answers quickly. Alright, thanks for watching. See you later.